Hello there, this is David from David Books and Comics, and today I want to show you a bundle that I just picked up, a bundle of 7 issues of the first solo appearance of Red Sonja in comic books, and the first series that eventually led into her, I think it was 14 or 15 issue series. This is from Marvel Feature number 1. And it will flip the page. It's the cover art is Gil Kane, one of the Marvel mainstays from the Bronze Age on many 1970s covers. This is from 1975, Volume 1, Number 1, Marvel Feature, featuring Red Sonja. Writer-editor is Roy Thomas. Artist is Dick Giordano. And it's based on a short story by Robert E. Howard. It says freely adapted from a short story by Robert E. Howard. So Roy Thomas, who was a big fan of Conan, discovered this novella called Shadow of the Vulture in a 1934 issue of Magic Carpet. And it featured this rough and tumble character called von Kalmbach. And the story also featured a character named Red Sonja of Rogatine, who was very adept at fighting with a sword. So Thomas, who was easily inspired by things like that, and based on a fanzine, as he's recounting in this, of swords and she-devils, based on a fanzine, he decided, let's make Red Sonja into the Hyborian age, the same age as Conan. And ergo, you have Red Sonja appearing in the Conan continuity, starting with issue 23 of the Marvel series of Conan the Barbarian. That was where Red Sonja, made her first appearance. But this is the first solo issue, so I was lucky to finally find it all in one bundle. Always remember to look for your comic book bundles. And for a very decent price. So I purchased it. And here you have wonderful artwork by, this one is by Giordano, I believe. Although it has an Esteban Maroto look. Let's just check here. Doesn't say, but I believe it was by Esteban Maroto. Yeah, I believe it was. This is a reprint from a black and white magazine. I think Savage Sword of Conan. All right. Let me know below if you know who it is, where he first appeared. So, but anyway, this is Marvel Feature number 1, with a beautiful cover art and featuring Red Sonja. And this is the first, this is number 2. As far as I know, this is the first Frank Thorne cover on Red Sonja, and the first interior art of Red Sonja. The story is called Blood of the Hunter. And there you go. Just to give you a sense of the quality of the artwork. It looks very action-oriented and stylized and suiting, I think, the sword and sorcery, that combination of sword, sorcery, and horror. that little element that makes up the sword and sorcery genre. All right, so that's number 2. And then we have number 3, another Frank Thorne cover. And there's several splash pages in this one. Frank Thorne went on to create a character similar to Red Sonja called Gita, Geta, I believe, but made for adults. This series is made for, another way to describe it is popular consumption. So anyway, so here's the Marvel value stamp you see often cut out in comic books. And there's the map of the Hyborian Age of Red Sonja and Conan. And I believe Conan the Barbarian came before, just a little bit before King Conan. All right. And there's an appearance of one of the Eternals. Eyes of the Gorgon. All right. So that's number 3. We'll move that aside and we will show you number 4. And this is probably the best of the Frank Thorne covers, with the superimposed blue and Sonja superimposed over top and kind of a skull in the background. Signed by the artist Frank Thorne. So Eyes of the Gorgon. And that's a famous story of what happens when you stare at the eyes of the Gorgon. With an interesting ending and climax. There you go. She has turned to stone because she looked on the eyes of the Gorgon. Standard sword and sorcery fare. All right, so that's that one. That's number 4. Number 5. We'll do a little bit of a deep dive into it. The Bear God stalks the night. How's that? The Bear God walks. Bruce Jones, writer. Frank Thorne, artist. And it is a good story, actually. All of them are. That's why she eventually had her own series that lasted, I believe, 14, 15 issues. Many of which, or most of which, were drawn by Thorne, Frank Thorne. The collectible feature of these issues is, of course, the artwork. And there you have it. A poster of Red Sonja. A pinup. Lots of color, lots of action. Of course, Frank Thorne was famous for, I believe he did the Brothers of the Spear. He did for Gold Key Comics. He also did the Mighty Samson for Gold Key Comics. And the Mighty Samson was kind of, well, it was science fiction. It was post-apocalyptic. It was a post-apocalypse Earth after the fall of the atomic bomb, so to speak, and radiation. And it was kind of sword and sorcery, but with a futuristic, obviously science fiction element. So this is number 5. So Frank Thorne, when he eventually came to Red Sonja, he was well suited to the genre of sword and sorcery, as he had already been working on similar type characters. I think with Red Sonja, though, I think he excelled. It's probably his most famous of all of his works. I remember reading that he died fairly recently, this in 2015, 2013, 2015. And maybe a little bit earlier, I can't remember. But he left us quite a legacy of artwork, not just on Sonja, but in other issues. And there's Ralph Macchio, who eventually, I believe, went into either editing or writing for comic books. I believe it was in the Blue Beetle that I showed you earlier. There was a letter from Marv Wolfman. If you watch that video, you'll see that. Sometimes as you're going through the letters pages, you'll see letters from very famous people. And this is the last issue of the Marvel feature. This is his meeting with Conan, or her meeting with Conan. And this is number 7, and it's called The Battle of the Barbarians. And this one is done by Frank Thorne. Writer and editor is Roy Thomas. I have, and I've showed it in previous episodes, the graphic novel versions of these. Which thing about the graphic novel is that the colors are so bright. The comic book version is, I believe, how the series was meant to be published and meant to be seen, not with the sharp color embellishments that you tend to see in the reprints. Nonetheless, either way, it's fun to read. So that's that. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this look at Red Sonja and Sword and Sorcery in these wonderful covers by Frank Thorne. And if you did, you like to continue to see the content that I'm going to share, please remember to like. And thanks everyone for subscribing. Please continue to subscribe. And feel free to comment. Please share anything that you saw, anything that you could add to the lore about Sword and Sorcery, Red Sonja, and Frank Thorne. Frank Thorne, I think, is one of the better artists and one of the few who can actually draw sword and sorcery really well. I grant that people like Barry Windsor Smith or John Buscema are excellent artists on this type of story, but I think by and large Frank Thorne is stands side by side, especially with people like Barry Smith. All right, I will put a link to my other videos, and there will be a button where you can click on and subscribe, and on the other side will be the link to the other videos. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.